Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Intentionally Get the Bad Endings for Katawa Shoujo, where we're continuing from where we left off. Okay, so we just talked to Akira, and now we're in the rain. Hurry, Lily! I'm moving as fast as I can. I can barely make out Lily's voice over the deafening pounding of the rain. Even though I dislike pulling her around, the situation calls for it. I turn forward, my free hand over my head in a futile attempt to keep at least my hair dry. My vision seems to be in grayscale. This really is rotten weather for summer, and the last kind of climate I want for a date. A pity. I even checked the weather forecast beforehand. One of the very few times I've ever done so, and only for it to say that Sunday afternoon would be fine. Looking to Lily, her shoulders are being now completely drenched, with her right hand holding tightly to mine, and her left gripping her stretched cane. This horrid downpour came on just we were between our destination and Yamaku. So we decided to try rushing the rest of the distance rather than doubling back. Entirely unused to running this fast, Lily's using all her concentration just to avoid tripping over. Hisao, do you know where we're going? Even she's reduced to shouting to try and be heard over this combined noise of the wind and rain. The rest of my voice is completely drowned out by the even heavier burst of rain. The what? The Shanghai! How far is it? It shouldn't be far now. It doesn't take long before I call out to her once again. It looks like we're safe, it's just up ahead. I quickly pull up to the stop just in front of a familiar exterior. The lantern outside still giving off the reliable glow, and wait for Lily to catch her breath before going in. Ladies first. The tiny bell rings out, and when I hold the door open for her, a smile and polite nod being my reward before entering myself. As I step in behind her, and wipe my feet, only a quick glance is necessary to notice the distinct lack of activity. The Shanghai doesn't seem to get much in the way of patronage, and today is no different. Only a couple of tables are occupied. Summoned by the bells ringing, a most expected person comes to greet us. Welcome to the Shanghai. Yuko looks chipper today. Trying to predict her mood is pretty hard, but it's nice to change from the norm. It's a nice change from the norm. Hello, Yucko. What if I call her Yucko now? Hey. Good afternoon, you two. She takes a deep bow, somewhat taken aback as she rights herself again and gets a better look at us. What happened to you? You both look... Her eyes drift towards the glass of the door behind us. Oh, oh dear. We're inside now, at least. I think that's the most important thing. It's nice and cozy. You're lucky to be working inside today. It has been nice and quiet. I like days like this. Oh wait, sorry, is there anything you'd like? French vanilla tea, please. Oh, how fancy. I'll have the same. Ha ha ha. Right. Coming right up. She quickly skitters off with a determined look on her face, trying very hard not to forget our order. If nothing else, she is at least dedicated to her jobs. How can she forget our order? It's one thing. I lead Lily to an empty seat before the two of us settle down. As usual, there is a large difference between my exhausted flopping down into my seat, and Lily's delicate sliding into hers. her cane set beside her. For a while I just idly watched the rain falling outside. The occasional person runs down the street trying to stay as dry as possible, hands often tightly gripping a rain-soaked umbrella. Lily sits just as quietly as I, her eyes closed as she intently listens to all that's happening. It's a comfortable, relaxing silence and that exists between us. Just the type that we'd so often shared together in the past months. For Lily, at least. I can't help replaying the words of her sister in my mind. At times contrasting them to both our time spent together since I answered Yumaku and to the ways we've been since we started dating. No matter how much I try, I can't work Lily out. It's as if the harder I try to second guess her emotions and her potential decision, the more difficult it becomes to reach a clear conclusion. It makes me doubt whether I even really understand her. In the end, I'm going to have to ask, even though I very much want to avoid doing so. You seem quiet today, Hisao. Really? You seem so enthusiastic about taking me out on a date. I assumed you had something specific you wanted to do. No, not really, just wanted to spend time with you. Is that so? Fine, there is one thing. A little grin finds her way onto Lily's face, her knowing full well that she's bested me. It makes what I want to say all the more awkward. It was just Akira and I were talking. Oh? What's with that tone? You two do seem to get along well, don't you? Well, I do think she's a pretty cool person to talk with. It'd be nice if any of the teachers were anything like her. Cool. For a moment I try to place her tone of voice, my mouth curling into a smirk as I realize it. You're not jealous, are you? I'm not jealous. Oh, look at that face. I like that face. After teasing me over such a thing on our first date, I don't feel too bad having a little laugh at her expense this time around. As we settle down through, it's only a minor distraction for the real point of why I brought Lily here. Don't worry, it was just mostly everyday stuff. That said, there was something Akira mentioned that I wanted to talk to you about. Sorry that I'm yawning, it's like 1 in the morning right now. When you went to see your family in Everness a while back, she said, Akira told you about my family's summons, hasn't she? Seconds tick by while I try to read Lily's face. An odd mixture of feelings written on it. She seems annoyed, and also somewhat confused. How is she confused? Here. Yucko. Yuko tentatively slides one drink onto the table. Her present's oddly small. As she walks back to the counter after a quick polite nod, I realize the air between me and Lily is thick and our expressions are both somewhat pensive. Even though she said I should lead my own life, she still interferes at the worst times. I don't think you should blame Akira here. She's just looking out for you, and it's not like I can't understand her concern over this. Lily's irritation gives way to an awkward and largely unsuccessful attempt to mask her feelings. She really doesn't deal with being cornered on personal topics. I know, but I just wanted some more time. I know you have figured it out eventually, but you were intentionally hiding this from me? For how long were you planning to do so? As I said, I simply wanted more time to think it through. I wanted to be sure of my decision before telling you. What did you decide to do in the end? I know that what I want her to say, but an awful feeling refuses to leave my gut. My family does dearly want me to return to them, and Akira will be going as well. I could still teach as a career whether it be here or there. So, you're going? How long have you known? I already know that you were asked when you first went to Scotland about a month ago. Sometime my frustration bores over. The fact that she's done this affects me more than it should. For her to, my God, this freaking music is so loud. Shut up, music. It's very distracting. For her to not only be leaving, but to be having actively hiding her own plans for me, and after seeing for so long to be the one solid pillar of support and reliability I could depend on. It feels as if the foundation underneath me is suddenly shifting drastically, much faster than I could adapt to. Perhaps this isn't so much frustrating as sheer unease. Lily? I'm sorry, I wanted to think this through completely. I wasn't trying to take advantage of you, please. I know, Lily, I know. This is just really sudden. I guess this means that once you go, we'll be breaking up? For one of those few times I've seen since I've met her, she's generally lost for words. She doesn't look surprised, no doubt because the fact had dawned on her once she became sure of her decision, but rather she appears genuinely uncertain of how to deal with the situation now that it's in front of her. We could try pursuing a long-distance relationship. They're getting more and more common these days, after all. Even as she says it, the tone of her voice gives away that she doesn't truly believe what she's saying. Lily is far too old-fashioned to be able to cope with a relationship without any kind of physical presence. And even I am, to an extent. All we could ever be to each other would be a voice for the other side of the world. In the end, trying to rationalize everything is futile. Any attempts to try and connect what's happening with the future or past just seems to be more difficult, and the more I concentrate. Those quiet moments when we just walked side by side, those precious times we spent with Hanako and Akira, the casual chatter we had during lunchtimes, the times we made love, the confessions of our feelings to each other. All pointless. All just a fleeting moment of our young lives. We're just two children pretending to be adults, aren't we? A long, long silence hangs in the air between us. The noise of the other patrons drinking and talking only makes the situation feel more strange and disconnected. Lily's face remains low, her dejected expression clouding it. I'm sorry, Hasao. A simple apology, and no more. She's left entirely without any further response or comment. With a long sigh, I gather what's left of my thoughts, and ask a final question I have for her. When will you be going? I'll be leaving with Akira, so it'll be a little less than a week. The beginning of summer holidays? Just a little afterward, yes. Her tone is unusually slow and steady, her apologetic and depressed mood all the more written on her face as she tries to hide it in her voice. In the end, I can't keep my promise of going to Tanabata with her before she leaves. I look down, seeing my face reflected in the by now lukewarm cup of neglected tea sitting in front of me. I really thought I've left this kind of expression behind. For a while, I just stared down into the still surface, trying to sort through my emotions to get at the course of action. At what course of action I should take, whether it be now or in the future. But, just as before, the effort is wasted. I glance up to see Lily gently sipping her cool tea without complaint, her face drawn and shoulders slumped. She looks so to be deep in thought, too. a strangely cold atmosphere coming between us as we isolate ourselves to mull things over. Even as Lily's cup slowly empties, mine remains untouched. It's a long time before I notice the rain dying down outside and the few other patrons of the Shanghai having left. The chill of the rapidly darkening evening permeates the dormitory hallway. While trudging down the corridor to my room, I see an unwelcoming movement from up ahead. Sure enough, the opening of the door opposite mine heralds the arrival of a bespectacled Kenji. Hey man, what's... Whoa, dude, you look awful, I think. You okay? He really has a knack of making any situation better. I don't really want to go into it. It's late. Okay, that's cool. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm, here. I look at him for a moment before surrendering my stern front and awkwardly scratching the back of my neck, embarrassed by the standoffish response to him. Thanks, Kenji. Hey, it's cool. That's what friends are for, right? Yeah, you're right. See ya. I open the door to my own dorm room and close it behind me as he quickly waves me off. The solid thud the door makes against the doorframe sounds out a final call for the life I've led since coming to Yamaku. I just stand in my darkened room, fruitlessly attempting to work out what I should do from this point onwards. Just what should I do? La da da, blue doo doo. How terrible. I would feel awful if that happened to me. As class ends, I simply rest my hand on my head and stare out the window to pass the time. It's been a few days since Lily told me of her plans. I haven't been to our ordinary lunchtime halt since then. Hut? Not that there would be much point. Hanako's been busy with her newspaper club she's newly joined, and has even begun talking in class with Naomi even now and then. Every now and then. Even Lily, aside from the fact that a meeting between us would have been awkward in any case, has been run off her feet with class representative duties at the summer holidays approach. And now they're just about here. With the end of today's bells, the summer holidays will have begun. I suppose that's all I end up doing will be visiting my parents for the duration and lazing about my old home, now that my previous plans are entirely askew. Meanwhile, Akira and Lily will be en route to Scotland to live out the rest of their lives there. No matter how hard I try to rationalize the idea that once the summer holidays begin, my life will return to the way it was, it simply refuses to happen. Everyone's moving on with their lives. Lily's joining her family, Akira's moving up in her father's business, Hanako's gaining new friends and hobbies, and even Yuko's moving ahead in her university aspirations. Even I'm moving forward in the end. With the marks I've gotten so far in Yamaku, much less after such a rocky beginning, the path to getting into teaching science as a career seems straightforward. I suppose I should at least be happy about that much, but it doesn't really seem to make me happy. It doesn't really seem to help, is what I meant to say. Hey-chan! I quickly stop my ruminating and turn to face the bubbly voice behind me, putting on the most upbeat expression I can muster. As expected, Shizune stands flanking her. I have a sneaking suspicion they want something from me. Hey, Mr. Shizune, what's up? Well, Shichan and I were thinking. Since We're just two poor little girls that need help with all the work we've been given just before the holidays begin. Sure, I could help. But Hachan, we really need. What? I think I broke Misha. Even Shizune raises an eyebrow at her accomplice, shuddering stop in her tracks. So you'll help us, Hachan? I just said I would, didn't I? It's hard to look like I have anything better to do. Maybe helping with them with their work will help keep my mind off the situation. Misha seems genuinely ecstatic with my response, but Shizune's expression is clouded and difficult to read. I find myself quickly averting my eyes from her own, as if it almost looks like a face of pity. No doubt, it must just be my imagination. No doubt, huh? This is hardly the first time I've been in the student council room. Indeed, I found myself down here often, either to help Lily with class rep work or to sort out one thing or another with the student council itself. Now, though, it's quite a different place. Papers are folded and strewn across every table in the room. Only a solitary little black laptop atop the single desk sticking out from the mess. It looks positively ancient, and I guess it has been valiantly serving its task and achieving information for years and years. So, what needs doing? This looks like a lot to do. Shizune's expression becomes determined as she sighs. It's a worrying look. Everything, Hachan. My worry was well placed. Everything, you say? What's left on the desk is what needs to be done. It's all needs to be diligently recorded, which is what that laptop is for. And I guess that I'll be doing what I'm guessing that I'll be the one doing this. Huh? Shichan says she saw you with the computer in the library a few days ago, and that you seemed really good with them. Good with computers. I can touch type, I guess, but it still seems like a overestimation of my skill. I was just typing my homework. Wait, Shizune was watching me do that? One must know their allies before they can know their enemies, of course. Wow, that's pretty wise. For once, it's not very hard to work out who said what. Nonetheless, it doesn't seem worth fighting over. Sitting at the computer doing some typing hardly seems onerous. As far as tasks to help Shizune and Misha go. Besides, it will help to take your mind off things. Take my mind off things? Take my mind off of what things? Misha's face goes blank as she translates this from Shizune, though the latter's response is only to glance away towards the window after briefly signing. Misha's face quickly returns to a smile as she translates back. She was confused, I guess, but Shizune is harder to pin down. I was just thinking that you might like to get your mind off the exams, of course. Either way, we may as well get into it sooner rather than later. I'll go along with you. That's the spirit, Hichan. And that's the 5th spreadsheet compiled and saved. Time for the next month's. And a little bit of fussing around, we all managed to get a bit more organized. Shizune's been gathering up the loose sheets and thankfully sorting them out into a neat pile next to me. Meanwhile, Misha's been handling the manual writing work, her girly pink pen leaving its unmistakable mark on paper after paper. Once I got myself into the rhythm, this really wasn't so bad. Shizune and Misha also seem to be in the swing of things, wordlessly communicating as they go about their business with fervor. I periodically glance at the sheet beside the laptop. Apparently, a list of students' names and matching addresses as I dutifully enter the data written on it. I don't pay a lot of attention to what I'm typing in until I reach about the midway down the page. Hakumichi, class 3-3. Huh. Her family home is in Saitama. My idle curiosity is ended abruptly as 3 light taps on the head rapping on the door. Misha quickly skips over to check who it is, tapping Shizune's shoulder on the way past to let her companion know what's happening. Ah, you're here. Hmm? Who is it? With a slight pause to enter Shizune's data into the file along with all the others, I look up to check who's at the door. Oh shit. Lily? After giving a cursory nod to Misha in greeting, she perks her head up in the trademark manner. Is that Hisao? She's pretty darn good at working out my voice from the smallest of phrases nowadays. Yeah, it's me. Hey. The atmosphere feels slightly awkward as she bows. Neither of us know quite how to intimate we should be around each other, given she's leaving in just a matter of hours. This is the fact that, thankfully, neither the obvious Misha nor the hard-working Shizune picks up on. So you've got work to do as well? Unfortunately, I've arrived as soon as I could, but my class held me up with a surprise farewell party, and I had to get changed. I glanced down at my laptop's clock. It's pretty much the end of lunchtime, so I'm guessing Lily manages to wrangle the last period off as well. I take it Shizune is here as well? Of course. Huh? And I've been doing her... What? I've been here during all of lunchtime as well. The last comment was really not needed. Shizune's baiting Lily into another argument. I can feel it. I'm sorry I can't be hardworking as you, Shizune. I'll endeavor to hire more lackeys to do my work in the future, I assure you. And Lily just took the bait, escalating things further. Huh? But aren't you the one always outsourcing work to your classmates? The difference is that they choose to help, unlike the tyrannical grip of your own class. Tyrannical? Huh? Tranny works. Even if we did things differently, we still got... Oh, tyranny works. Tranny. Tyranny works. Even if we did things differently, we still got the same results, right? This is school, not a police state. You will have to remind me when you were appointed class monarch, I'm afraid. You have to seize power. It's not as good as it's being handed over to you. But I guess you wouldn't really understand that, right? Huh. You'll also have to remind me when monarchs were elected into their positions. You're positively... Bristols? Brittles at this. Lily positively brittles at this. Shizune's 2-hit combo forces her onto defense. Yet for all of your vaunted power, you cannot get one person to help you without forcing him. Huh? But Hisao volunteered. He's such a hard worker. He's doing this instead of mindlessly socializing, right? Is that so, Hisao? This is bad. I really ended up between a rock and a hard place. As much as it pains me to do this, the truth has to at least has at least a chance to stopping this argument here and now. It's okay, Lily. They didn't harass me to come or anything. Lily gives a disapproving grimace, slightly radiating her strong feelings of displeasure in my general direction. She can get quite scary when she wants to be, though thankfully this isn't often. Huh? Hey-chan, you make that sound like it's a regular occurrence. It isn't? In the end, it doesn't matter so long as everything getting done at a good pace. Yet, just get this work over with so we can go home. Shizun snorts decisively, or wait, what? Derisively? Derisively? And gets back to marking off the sheets in front of her, while Lily signs and finds her way along the room with her hand following and filing cabinets lined along the wall. This would make the only time I've managed to successfully diffuse one of those situations. But the grudging ceasefire built around the mutual fear and respect makes this feel more like the Cold War than any real peace. I can't take all the credit though. Lily's leaving has surely affected Shizun to some extent, to make her give up so easily. Moments before getting back to my work, I noticed Lily reaching up to grab something from above a filing cabinet. I almost offered to help, but her height gives her ample ability to take it down safely. Once she sets the strangely shaped device on the desk beside me, I realize just what it is, sort of, as she takes the old green covering off and sits down. At first glance it seems to be an old metallic blue typewriter, but it doesn't take me long to realize it's far from ordinary. It has far fewer keys than expected, and those it shows and those it has showed no lettering printed on them, only the shadows cast by the tiny braille dots on them, giving a hint to the thing's purpose. Blind typewriter? Oh, this? Well, you're not far off. It's normally called a Perkins brailler, but it's basically a typewriter for the blind, yes. It presses braille into page rather than text, which is why it has fewer keys. Huh, that's really neat. She gives a light-hearted grin at my curiosity over it. I have excuse me. I have to admit that it appeals to my sense of novelty. Without further ado, we each get back to our allotted tasks. The loud clunking of the mechanics in Lily's brailler, and the typing of the laptop's old and weary keyboard quickly fill the room. It's a nice atmosphere, really. Everyone knows what they have to do, and Lily and I get in to sit beside each other and exchange the odd word as we work away. Nostalgic. That's what it feels like. It's pleasant, but just slightly stained with the knowledge that our time together is nearly at its end. Excuse me, Misha? To properly address her, Misha bounces over from the filing cabinet she's peering into, in spite of Lily's lack of sight. For a moment, I think it's strange, but then realize it's exactly what I do. What's up? Could you ask Shizun where the attendance record for Class 3-2 are? I think they've been moved. Okie dokie. And with that, she flutters off to Shizun, who's working at a table behind us. Lily's familiarity with the council room and the efficiency with which she works remind me that she, Misha, and Shizun used to all work together at the student council. Maybe this is a fitting end for her stay in Yamaku, working away just like she used to, surrounded by those she loves, and at least liked. I look getting taken off guard by Shizun snorting through a drawer rather than Misha. Sure enough, she plunks out a manila folder. entirely blank, saving for just barely visible bumps on its side, and holds it in front of Lily. Lily's hands fits over it to check what it is, her fingers feeling the dots of the braille and confirming it's what she asked for. Thank you, Misha. No reply. No reply, that is, saves for an odd grin. No smile on Shizun's face. A couple of seconds pass before Lily clicks that it isn't Misha's behind her, but Shizun. Her momentary look of surprise is replaced by a slightly bashful smile. For a moment, the room is all but still and silent. Eventually, though, Shizun strides back to her workstation and Lily begins typing once again. It only lasted a handful of seconds and all, but it feels like years of communication were made up for in that one silent exchange. There! Finito! Finished! I lean my head back and rub my eyes to try and work away the weariness, staring at the small and rather poor screens taking a toll. Excellent timing. The only thing left is to file these away and I'll have my workload finished as well. Good. I can pack up the brailer and put it away while you do that. Thank you, Hisao. Misha, are you and Shizun far from being done? I look around for the two as I replace the cover over the brailer, only to see them waiting at the door. I guess they must be waiting for us. With a minimum of wasted time, we file and pack up everything that remains and join them. Thanks for waiting, you two. We couldn't just take off without Hichan. You've been a great help. Shizun nods approvingly, pleased with my efforts. I guess that's the last class representative work done and over with then. That's right. I'll miss you, Lily. I think it was fun working with you. Thank you, Misha. It's been good working with you. And Shizun. Shizun thinks for a moment about formulating her response. It's not that she often communicates without thinking, quite the opposite, but this time it even more considered than the usual. Misha looks a little surprised before passing on the message. Shizun says you better do your work over there better than you did it here. Far from taking offense, Lily giggles into her hand. If that's the case, then please tell Shizun to give those still here a little more understanding in the future. Competitive until the last. Maybe Shizun and Lily aren't so different after all. Shichan says that she'll be checking to make sure you live up to your end of the promise. Then that's how it will be? I better be off then. Goodbye, Shizun. Goodbye, Misha. Hisao? Lily takes a hold of my arm in hers, then hers, there being no need for a cane if I'm here to guide her. With a nod of farewell to the two, we set off to the door and make our way to the school grounds. As I turn to wave goodbye to them, I notice Shizun's gaze lingering on Lily. They may annoy each other, but family bonds aren't easily broken. Get all the papers sorted out then? Yes. They have been filed out and handed in. On top of things as always, aren't you? She gives an earnest smile at the compliment, but it feels as if the happiness is just a veneer over the fact that she's fully aware of how much she's leaving behind. It reminds me of how she was like when I first met her. Always smiling, always a little bit aloof, always that little distance away from everyone. Even now she still maintains that air around many others, especially those she's not close to. I had often that our time together had changed that fact. Our pace slows down. Our pace slows. The two of us coming to a halt in all the bit empty school grounds. Hisao is something the Lily's words are cut short as I turn and wrap my arms around her, pulling her tight. I may not usually be giving in such an impulsive action, but I just wanted to be close to her, even if it's the last time I'll be able to. All the other students have retreated to their dormitories and homes, only the ruffling of leaves in the breeze making any sound whatsoever. As I draw back, I can see she dropped her carefully maintained smile. Her hand hesitates, wanting neither to leave nor to stay on my features. She is putting up a brave show, but her slight trembling gives her away. Lily may be able to control herself well, but even she can't hold her composure together now. This is the woman I've come to love, but also the one who is all too short a time will leave the country forever. I'm sorry, Hisao. It's okay, you've got your own life to lead after all. We walk up to the hallway in the girls' dormitory hand in hand, our emotions by now equally quelled. Nevertheless, our hands grip each other's much more tightly than before. Faint muffled voices can be heard from Lily's room, the origins of which aren't difficult to guess. The moment she opens the door, Hanako bursts through and wraps her arms around Lily, taking her very obviously by surprise. Lily! Lily! Well, I think that's enough for this session, so next time we'll continue from here. See you guys later.